I have a lot of complicated feelings when it comes to the Shining Sarcophagus series of cards. They are a very fun deck to play. They have competent cards, they have a game plan, but they ultimately just end up not really doing anything. They have a ton of negation tools, they have a lot of attack gaining abilities and battle phase disruption tools, but they don't have anything that can consistently and impactfully disrupt the opponent enough to be useful outside of having a little bit of fun at locals. I care about this deck so much, but it needs to be able to do more. Which is why today I'm going to be talking about these cards and other cards that I think could make it better. So off the bat, the deck has access to some pretty strong tools already. There's a spell negate, targeting negate, there is a monster negate, and completely ending the battle phase is a lot stronger of a disruption than you might think. On top of that, all of the attack redirection and interruption stuff is nice. It even has some way of avoiding destruction, which it's not going to use, but it's there. And on top of all of that, on their own turn, they have the ability to just nuke the field for the cost of half your life points, which is very powerful. It doesn't really do a lot, though. That's it. Monster negation is nice, spell negation is nice, and targeting once is nice, too. The problem is that it's very specific negation. It doesn't have anything that you can constitute as reliable disruption. It's all very specific and just leads to the deck floundering in a lot of situations. However, with my absolute insanity that I've been driven to, I have deduced what I think could fix this deck. These are 7 fan-made cards that I have made personally that I think is enough to make the deck playable. Would I consider using at least one of every card in the deck to make it a pure variant? If I want to go fucking insane, maybe, but honestly, like, it's up to you, I guess. Are you going to use one of every gladiator beast or hero? Let's be real. It gets to a point where I just have to admit that there was faults in design. But that being said, here is what I would do to fix the deck. Obviously, I'm just going to stick with what we already have and just make new cards to support that. Now, keep in mind, I am very knowledgeable about Yu-Gi-Oh!, but if there's one thing I am familiar with is that the grammar and the punctuation of cards matter to such a considerable degree that I may have been wrong when trying to translate these effects onto cards. So if I mess up, that is on me, and I apologize. I'm not going to claim to be perfect with that shit. But it's the general idea that I want to get across with them. Also, I did not know I would make this into a video, so I did not save the text before creating the cards, so I won't be able to copy and paste that on screen. You'll just have to read it on the card as I show it on screen. I apologize for that. That being said, let's actually jump into what these cards are. For me, the biggest thing that was missing from this deck is a dedicated boss monster. Now, they like to pretend that Gandora is a boss monster, but it's not. It's a play extender. It's a disruption tool, essentially. And a very vulnerable one at that. So, while it is a good card, depending on whether or not you're running Dragoon, which could also constitute as this deck's actual boss, I want to give this deck something that it can reliably utilize in order to facilitate its game plan, which, as far as I can tell, is locking out the opponent from being able to do much of anything and disrupting them from being able to counter what you're doing. Essentially, it is a stun deck with extra steps. Does that make it fun to go up against? It depends on who you ask. However, if I had to make a single card to add to this deck to fix all of its problems, there is one card that I would do, and that is Slifer the Shining Dragon. Now, you're probably thinking, wait, that's a Thames monster in the duel, not Yugi's. And you're right. Hasn't stopped the deck before. Look, I understand that it's not specifically Yugi's monster, but the effect that I give it inadvertently makes it so that it technically works in tandem with the theme of the deck on that scale, as well as just being good synergistically, I guess. Yeah. Essentially, it just is Slifer the Sky Dragon with very minor altercations and additional effects. So just like Slifer, it requires 3 tributes to normal summon, and it cannot be normal set. Its normal summon cannot be negated, and when normal summon, cards and effects cannot be activated. This next portion of the effect is where my altercations come to fruition. Gains 1,000 attack and defense for each card in both players' hands. Technically, if Yugi and Atem are the same being, then you can make an argument that blah 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 blah. Basically, like, the Shining Star cards are just power crept Yugi cards anyway. I don't think anyone's going to care that much if that is the effect. I genuinely don't think it's that overpowered. Especially with how big the fucking attack values are on some of the other cards as well. And then if a monster is normal or special summoned to your opponent's field attack position, that monster loses 2,000 attack, and if its attack has been reduced to 0 as a result, destroy it. That's going to be, like, the main reason you would want to run this guy, is for that floodgate effect, where, like, if they want to, like, get a combo going and they need a lot of little guys to do it, that is an easy disruption. Granted, they could just play him in defense position. However, Malice players do be concerned. I'm wondering if it would be fair if they just didn't need to be in attack position at all. If they were just summoned, they just lose like 2,000. Would that be overpowered? Probably. It does force your opponent to, like, have to, like, do combos before, like, committing to, like, just attacking over stuff. So that does leave you primed to negation. To be able to negate things, I mean. And, like, it's not the worst floodgate imaginable, so it's, like, all the stuff working in tandem with each other that makes it, like, a noteworthy end board by the end of your turn. Which is very in line with the themes of Yu-Gi-Oh! As a whole in general. Your friends give you strength. Like, as a collective, as a whole, you're stronger together. You know, the original intention behind Exodia and all that. Yes, I did start reading the manga. Yeah, once per turn during the end phase, if this card was special summoned, or Shining Sarcophagus isn't on the field, destroy this card. Another alteration of its original effect, it also requires Shining Sarcophagus to be on the field as well. And now come the unique effects that I gave it. You can only use each of the following effects of Slifer the Shining Dragon once per turn. If Shining Sarcophagus is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand, but negate its effects and destroy it during the end phase. If this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon this card to your opponent's side of the field. This is treated as a special summon from your opponent, but banish it when it leaves the field. Okay, so right there, you could probably see what the fuck I'm trying to do with this, right? I'm literally just recreating the end of that duel. Just Atem summoning Slifer and Yugi sending it back to the depths of hell. Okay, so that was a lot. So I had to work on, like, the phrasing of a lot of these effects, because I realized, oh, I need to account for these loopholes and whatever. So, considering that a lot of the cards are focused around being destroyed, this does also encourage you to be able to, like, use Gandora's effect as well, if you want to proc this shit early, or you can just wait till the end of the turn for all of this to go down. So it gives you some versatility on how you want to go about doing things. Granted, this also ties into why I think the card fits the deck. It's because it belongs to your opponent. You know? Like, Dark Magician can't claim to do that, but I digress. The idea is, give it to your opponent, activate Shining Sarcophagus to send it to the graveyard, but because of its effect, it instead gets banished. Because the Sarcophagus itself does not destroy with its effect, we can differentiate the two conditions to influence what Slifer is able to do. If this card is banished, and you control Shining Sarcophagus and a monster that mentions it, unless it was destroyed while on your opponent's field, you can add this card to your hand, then immediately after this effect resolves, you can normal summon this card without tributing. So, I might be crazy. I do not think that this is an overpowered effect. I think that this is a very fair card. Granted, I could do a thing where, like, instead of, oh, this is treated as a summon by your opponent, I could just force the opponent to have to summon a level 10 or higher monster in your graveyard and special summons it to their field. If I have to say this is not optional, blah, 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 blah. I could do a thing where it's like, oh, they could pick either... if I want to be on theme, I could say, oh, like, that or a spellcaster. That lets you gives you the option to destroy Dark Magician if you want to destroy him on the opponent's field during your turn. I think that would be too fucking stupid, so I'm just not going to do that. Even if it would thematically make sense. I actually have some integrity when it comes to designing cards, unlike Konami. So, I hope you understand where I'm coming from with this line of logic. Essentially, just be able to get Slifer onto the field, get it destroyed, put it on the opponent's field, use the Sarcophagus to remove it from the field, and then after you're finally done with role-playing as Yugi Moto, you go, okay, back to business, and you just summon Slifer for free. I genuinely do not think this is overpowered. I really don't. I genuinely do not. Like, you have to have a spell in your hand to discard in order to facilitate this effect. So it's not even, like, 100% reliable. Except you can grab a spell with the Sarcophagus, so it is kind of a little bit reliable, but it does involve you having to sacrifice or search for the turn. That being said, the remaining cards I designed were focused around either supporting Slifer or just giving the deck more versatility in ways in which it didn't have before. The next card that I designed was the card with the Magnet Warriors on them, because you gotta have the Magnet Warriors in this deck. I'm surprised they're not in this deck already. Just like with the Gadget Trio, it's just all of them on one card. And they are Magnet Warriors of Noble Arms. Why are they a Noble Arms card? Fuck it, man! Like, why is anything a Noble Arms card nowadays? Let's be real. I've lost my mind designing these cards, so excuse me if, like, I just have a little bit of fun. If Shining Sarcophagus is on the field, this card can be treated as 3 tributes for the tribute summon of a monster. Gee, I wonder who that's for. Yeah, like, it's the Magnet Warriors, there's 3 of them in one card, it makes sense. You could do, like, the Silent Zero thing where you just have, like, a transparent illusion of Mr. Magna Warrior in the background, with the other 3 just in the front. You ever notice how Beta just has a Magna dick? Anyway, my point being, that is meant to facilitate its synergy with Slifer, so you can more easily get on the field if you're able to, like, summon it off of, like, Ties That Bind, for example. Or if you nuke the field with Gandora, summon it, and then you could just use that for the tribute. So you have options on how to, like, get onto the field, even though it doesn't have a special summon condition of its own. Anyway, you can only use each of the following effects of Magnet Warriors of Noble Arms once per turn. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one spell or trap that mentions Shining Sarcophagus from your graveyard to your hand. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target up to 2 monsters, one in your graveyard and one banished, that mentions Shining Sarcophagus except Magnum Ward's Noble Arms. Add them to your hand. So, one glaring issue I found with the deck is that it has no recovery at all. The most it's got is like Dark Magician when it's destroyed, and more Marshmallow also when it is destroyed. Like, that is it. There is no other recursion to speak of. And just being able to recycle your resources, I think, should be a tool that the deck has access to. Like, I don't think it should be fair for them to run, like, Pot of Avarice. Is that the one that, like, even then, like, sometimes they're going to be banished, so it's like, just have the stuff readily available to you. It's not too broken, because you don't get to, like, use over and over again, like the banish effect of Turn Silence, but you do get to get that monster negate back, which is nice, I guess. It's really just more so that you have more access to the resources that you've used, that when you go into the grind game, if you're unlucky enough, there's no way to really recoup those losses. Yeah, that's it. Like, it's a very simple card. Like, you get your resources back and also act as tribute fodder for Slifer. It's pretty cut and dry. Much like the next card I designed, Brickman! I told you, man. I told you I wanted a Blockman retrain. I wanted a Blockman retrain so bad. Here it is. But what would I do with him? That's the real thing. It's like, having Blockman in the deck is funny, but what would he do? This is what I came up with. If you control Shining Sarcophagus, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, special summon in defense position, 2 block tokens. Special summon 2 block tokens, and they have the block token stats that Blockman gives them. It's literally just the same type of tokens. And I picked 2 because I believe that was the amount that Yugi summoned in his duel. Theoretically, Blockman could summon more, but it would take up more turns. This one you just get 2 immediately. You know, like, it's fair. Like, 1 card for 2 mats? Okay. If you want to put on the stipulation that they can't be used as link material or synchro material, sure. I can already imagine that there are some Yugi boomers that would love to fuse it with something. I guess, I don't know. But, yeah, it's just like, he doesn't summon himself. You discard him to send out the tokens. If your face-up Shining Sarcophagus on the field would be banished, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. You can only use each effect of Brickman once per turn. Another issue that I have with Sarcophagus is that while it is immune to being destroyed by monsters, it is still susceptible to other forms of removal, most notably banishing. I want to give it some protection against that. Like, this does lead the card to be very side-decked, but, you know, it's something. Also, if it wasn't apparent already, the tokens could also be used as tribute material for Slifer, so that's like being faithful to the original effect, but also facilitating the strategy that you would want to go about with these new cards. Another issue that I found with the deck is that the Sarcophagus doesn't have any cards worthwhile discarding in order to facilitate the negate the summon from graveyard effect. I wanted to give it access to something like that so that you are incentivized to go about doing that, because it is a powerful form of disruption. And I don't want to have to waste a monster negate to do that, just because it can have floating in the graveyard. However, what would that look like? And in my eyes, the answer was the card that it is referencing to begin with. Monster Reborn. Now, the way it worked in the duel is that Yugi putting Monster Reborn in the sarcophagus means that he was able to effectively negate the effect when attempted to use it himself. So, if I made a card that was an anti-Monster Reborn, that would work pretty well. But what would it look like? Well, here's what I came up with. Monster Reborn reversed. If your opponent controls a special summoned level 10 or higher monster or monsters, while you control Shining Sarcophagus, target one of them, send it to the graveyard. Essentially, it is just a Sarcophagus effect, just on its own, but it is a lot more strict. Like, it has to be level 10 or higher. Now, fighting against a level 10 or higher boss monster is not unheard of, but that is not what you're going to be using this card for anyway, so I wanted to disencourage anyone from wanting to use the main effect of the card. But I still wanted to be there as an option in case you wanted to be funny, I guess. I don't know. Like, maybe it wasn't summoned from the grave. Anyway, if this card is discarded to the graveyard while you control Shining Sarcophagus and a monster that mentions it, I believe the effect from Shining Sarcophagus requires you to discard, so that's why I'm specifically saying that and not sent or... Yeah. So yeah, with all that stipulation, monsters cannot activate their effects in the graveyard. Also, monster effects in the graveyard are negated. You can only use each effect of Monster Reborn reversed once per turn. So, essentially it's just Necro Valley. More or less. Not exactly. It just prevents your opponent from being able to rely on your monsters in the graveyard as a second hand, essentially. You can still use the floating effects of your traps and spells, but as far as monsters go, if they can reborn themselves, they can't. If they can float into something, they can't. They are locked there. Nothing can activate. Nothing changes. I'm sorry, Cyber Dragons, but it's just how it be sometimes. I feel like if you're going to dedicate discarding a spell card from your hand in order to negate the summon from the grave, you should be given a tool as powerful as that, especially with those limitations at play. Originally, I only designed these 4 cards as a way to just patch up the holes that the deck was lacking. That being the lack of a boss monster, the lack of any sort of recovery option, the lack of any banishment protection, and the lack of any worthwhile card to discard for the graveyard effect of the graveyard summon negation effect of the sarcophagus. But because I never stopped going crazy, I designed 3 additional cards after that. The entire time, I really wanted to make a field spell that's, like, based off of, like, the setting of the duel, you know? Like, the Tomb of the Pharaoh and all that. Like, where the Millennium items got put to rest again. And I didn't know what to do with it. Like, obviously I would want it to be, like, another name for the sarcophagus. But what else would it do that the sarcophagus can't just do itself? Like, how would I distinguish the two? And then I decided to just go all in on Slifer. This card's name becomes Shining Sarcophagus while on the field or in the graveyard. Literally, like, there's no reason for it to share that name in the graveyard. I could just remove that part of the effect. I don't think it matters, but if you ever want to recover Shining Sarcophagus specifically with future support, then, like, there you go, I guess. But yeah, it counts as Shining Sarc while on the field. So that's another 3 extra copies to be able to guarantee getting to this fucking card to facilitate effects. This does mean that if you want maximum consistency, that's a minimum of 15 cards in your deck. Anyway, you can treat a monster that mentions Shining Sarcophagus as 2 tributes for the tribute summon of a monster. Technically, this does synergize with Slifer, but it could also help you normal summon a boss monster if your field is, clogged or whatever. And you really don't care about getting the destruction effect off of the gadgets. Oh my god, I hate myself. So, that's not actually true, because I forgot to read one of the effects that I just put on this card, just blatantly straight up. I don't know how I missed it. Essentially, it says that monsters that are tributed are treated as being destroyed. This applies to both sides of the field, obviously, but it's specifically synergistic with you, since if you're going to be summoning Slifer and you want to use it on monsters that would like to be destroyed if possible, it leads to some synergies that actually make you plus, technically. I am so mad that I skipped over this effect and completely forgot about it, because other than being another Sarcophagus by name, it's probably the most important effect that this card has. So yeah, please know that that is on the card, and I am just stupid and can't read my own writing. Thank you. If a level 10 or higher monster is summoned to your opponent's field, target one of those monsters. It cannot be used as material for a fusion, synchro, exes, or link summon. Also banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use this effect of Ceremonial Duel once per turn. Oh yeah, by the way, the card's called Ceremonial Duel. I don't know why the text is clipping into the icon like that. It's really annoying for me, but whatever. So it's meant to be more disruption against level 10 or higher monsters, because it's meant to be referencing how Yugi was able to combat the Egyptian gods. But on top of that, if for some reason you weren't able to facilitate like the actual Sarcophagus's effect, then they're just stuck with a Slifer that can't do anything, that they could just use as material. But if you activate this effect, then not only when it leaves the field do you get it back yourself, but also they can't use it to extend their plays in a meaningful way, so they would either have to have it destroyed or tribute it. Otherwise they just have only 4 zones on the field. Also, it blocks up a link zone, which could be very funny. I don't know if I would keep the effect like this. Like, maybe I would have it be like some other form of disruption, because in hindsight, if your opponent summons a monster that is level 10 or higher, then theoretically they're not going to want to use it as material for an extra deck play. I guess I could also say like a ritual either. Like, it can't be used for material for a ritual summon, but like, if we're locking out the extra deck, then like, there you go. Something else that I did kind of like forget to mention. Yes, if Slifer the Sky Dragon did get a retrain like this, that would mean that we would get another divine attributed divine beast type monster. But the Shining Sark deck is very cool and deserves it. Anyway, yeah, it's like simple good stuff. Like this is the card that I was struggling the most with, and I feel like if I were to change a card, this is the one I would most likely want to change. This is the best I could come up with. If you have like any better ideas of what you think the field spell could do, definitely like give me your thoughts. But that's just where my head was at. As far as other things to adapt, one thing I really wanted to adapt was the magnet trap card that Yugi used, because that was the card that he used to defeat the Egyptian gods with. Just using their own attacks against themselves. Like, that's pretty smart. Like, the only thing that could defeat an Egyptian god is an Egyptian god, so use the Egyptian gods to defeat the Egyptian gods. But I didn't know how to go about doing it that wouldn't feel redundant to Mirror Force. So, here's what I came up with. Magnet Redirection. I made this a normal trap. It could be a counter trap also. I don't know if that would be overpowered. It might be, but I say it could be either normal or counter. Anyway, if your opponent activates a monster effect while they control a level 10 or higher monster, or a monster special summoned from the extra deck, and you control a monster that mentions Shining Sarcophagus, you only need the monster, not the sarcophagus itself, negate that effect, and if you do, all monsters your opponent controls lose 2,000 attack, and if their attack has been reduced to 0 as a result, destroy them. I might want to rephrase it in that, like, if any of those monsters' attack was reduced to 0 due to this effect, destroyed the applicable monster. Some bullshit like that. It would be funny to have unique vocabulary in these cards. But yeah, it's literally the idea is your opponent activates an effect, and you redirect it back. They activate Slifer's effect, and you redirect it back at them. It's not literally going to be Slifer's effect, but you initially just use Slifer's effect against your opponent, essentially. Because that is what literally happened. And while that is a good disruption tool, like, again, it's another monster negate on top of the monster negate that they already have. But it's a little more strict and gives much more benefits than the other one does. It also has a floating effect as well. During damage calculation, if your monster that mentions Shining Sarcophagus battles, you can banish this card from your graveyard, destroy your opponent's battling monster. You can only activate one magnet redirection per turn. I might want to, like, change that to, like, oh, you can only use each effect of magnet redirection once per turn. And I don't know if I want to do it, like, and only once that turn. Like, I don't know if that's necessary. But, yeah, the idea is that it's another monster negate, disruption to the opponent with their attack values, and destroying more monsters that they control. And on top of that, so it encourages you to, like, proc it, like, later in their combos, while they have, like, a set of board, but before they can get to something that can, like, deal with it. Yeah, as you can imagine, it's more battle phase floating. I wanted the effect to be, like, not as ridiculous as Turn Silence, but also, like, impactful enough to where it's just, like, another version of it. And it being a trap and doing things slightly differently, I think validates it more as being a part of the deck rather than being redundant to either card. So, like, it's a mix of both Mirror Force and Turn Silence. So I feel like I feel like that's a card that would be welcome in this deck to some extent. There was one more card that I made, and I was wondering what else could I make a card version of? Like what else could I make a variant of? Eventually, it came to me. Did you know both Atem and Yugi activated Pot of Greed in that duel? At least in the anime. Anyway, what does Pot of Radiance do? Well, I'll tell you. Target up to 5 cards with different names in your graveyard or banishment that are either Shining Sarcophagus or mention it, except Pot of Radiance. Shuffle them into the deck, then you can have both players draw 2 cards. So, another reason why I gave Slifer the ability to increase its attack depending on your opponent's card count in their hand along with yours is because it synergizes alongside Silent Magician, who is benefiting from your opponent drawing. So it's just like, oh, the more advantage your opponent gets, the more attack values you get on multiple monsters. But also, like, I feel like this synergizes with, like, them as well, because, like, you gain advantage and they get advantage. So it's never like you're putting yourself at a minus to too much of an extent. It's basically another recycling tool with a little bit of risk. But if your goal is to deck out your opponent, like you're running a Runic variant, which is probably the strongest variant this deck has access to at the current moment, honestly, then yeah, you're gonna wanna focus on that anyway. But again, I wouldn't make a normal spell card if it wasn't going to be able to synergize with the Sarcophagus. So here's what the actual effect of Radiance is. If this card is discarded to the graveyard and you control Shining Sarcophagus, draw 2 cards. You can only activate one effect of Pot of Radiance per turn and only once that turn. So yeah, I just literally put Pot of Greed in the deck. I mean, if there's a deck that could get away with it, I stand by. I do not think it is broken. I do not think it's broken. I think it's fair. And also very funny. But yeah, those are the cards. I do genuinely think that if these cards were printed now, Shining Sarcophagus would be a competent deck. Would they be tiered? No, probably not, but I could see them being better. I know when the Dark Magician support comes out eventually, Shining Sarcophagus will unironically actually have like an actual competent deck that I believe could be seen as competitive, or at least viable to an extent. And that's crazy, because all you need is just the Sarcophagus, Dark Magician, and the Dark Magician Girl for it. Which is more of an engine than anything else, but okay. It's closer to a Tachyon deck than it is Shining Sarcophagus. But the point still stands, is that I still believe that this deck has the potential to be good. I have proven that just now. Limiting them to this duel does not bar them from making good cards. All it really does is test how far they want to make it actually competitively viable. You would think that making a boomer bait deck viable would be like the ultimate marketing strategy, but no, instead they're more focused on furries, I guess. Hey, whatever sells, man. Thank you for indulging me in my obsession once again. What would you add to the deck to make it good? Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe, and follow me on Blue Sky, and give me $100,000 so I can coerce Konami into making these real. Okay, thank you, bye!